Hey everyone, so yesterday I made a video reacting to the new Season 2 trailer for Marathon that Bungie dropped. And there's a lot of sweet stuff in that. Obviously, if you want to go check that out, please do. Obviously, that info is a little bit outdated now within like 24 hours. But that's fine because Bungie just dropped a huge document of all of their updates for Season 2. Let's get into it. The first huge thing I think is going to be massive for the game is the first week of Season 2, so from June 2nd to June 9th, is going to be a free week. So anybody can download and play Marathon. And this is something that the community has been saying for months now that just needs to happen. And so it's great to see that Bungie is taking that feedback into account. I know I'm going to be begging all of my friends to jump in. And it's a good time too, because everybody's vaults are getting wiped and it's all going to be a level playing field. Obviously, big news is the new zone. It's Dire Marsh, but at night. And that heavily featured as an element of the trailer that I talked about. Everything is shrouded in darkness. The anomaly seems to be more active. They say the anomaly blocks your path. The long sight lines are obscured in the dark, and you'll want to be careful where you shine your flashlight. There's going to be new mechanics, new combatants, and new locations to discover. And they say it's built to be slower paced than Daymarsh and plays more like a survival horror experience, which is huge. I feel like that is exactly what they were saying with the trailer yesterday. And yeah, glad to hear that that's what they're going for. Something I noticed is there's going to be slightly fewer players, which I think is interesting. They've been tweaking the player counts throughout Season 1. I noticed when I jumped back in a week ago is that Perimeter specifically, I didn't notice it too much on Dire Marsh, but on Perimeter specifically, it definitely felt like there were way less runners. So I don't know if that was intentional or maybe it's just the player base is just not as big towards the end of the season, but I think any tweak to this is very welcome. So they say that mastering this new area is going to require you using new equipment that's specifically designed for the map. The first one is a flashlight, which we saw a lot of in the trailer. A commenter said that there's actually been a keybind for the flashlight hidden in the game for a long time. So that's pretty interesting that we're finally seeing that come to fruition. They have these new things called vector rounds, which is a new type of mag, they say, which creates pools of light where your bullets land, illuminating enemy runners and combatants. Then there are vector grenades, which highlight the environment and ping nearby enemies, which I think is pretty cool. Arc Raiders has like a tagging grenade that I don't know if it really illuminates the environment, but it definitely pings enemies, which is cool. They also have these things called dark sight scopes. It highlights the environment around you after you ADS for a brief period. And they say it's focused on traversal versus like highlighting enemies. So not like a thermal scope or anything. I think it's cool that we're getting like a lot of specific mechanics just for Night Marsh. Oh, also, before I forget, there are also signal flares, which we did see in the trailer as well, and they come in a variety of colors. I mentioned in the video yesterday that part of the focus for the story of Season 2 is that the UESC is ramping up their operations. This Night Marsh map seems to fit directly in with that. They say that the USC have secured their resources on Night Marsh with advanced encryption. So you're going to have to kill UESC to gather their encryption certificates, or they say certs for short, and hack into network towers across Night Marsh to gain access to their stockpiles of weapons and other loot. The other thing that I thought was interesting was that the exfils on Night Marsh are going to be locked, and you have to use these certs to activate the exfils. I think that's really fun, and I think that's what the runner is holding in the trailer, that like square brick thing that I didn't know what it was. Yeah. So also, and this is big news, we're going to get access to the upper levels of Complex. So if you don't know what that is, Complex is a building on Dire Marsh. It has been locked and sealed off. You'll notice that there are these staircases that lead up to the top floor, and they have just led to dead ends. So the crazy thing is it sounds like using those certs that we get from the UASC, we're going to be able to get up there and unlock some of the secrets that are in there, whatever that might be. They say powerful loot and mysteries await in the upper rooms of complex control. Another thing that's interesting is the matchmaking aspect of Dire Marsh and Night Marsh. Because they're the same map but two different versions, they're trying to be cognizant of how they split up the player base. To do that, they are going to rotate Dire Marsh and Night Marsh every 90 minutes. So what that means is for the first week at least, they say is every 90 minutes it's going to be Dire Marsh, and then in the next 90 minutes it's going to be Night Marsh. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but I think it's interesting because they have been experimenting with the queues and how those queues split up the player base. They do say that most of the Dire Marsh contracts can be completed on either zone, with a couple of exceptions. There are going to be some Night Marsh exclusive contracts as well. So this is where things start to get even more juicy. They go into some details about the new runner shell, which is called Sentinel, and it's, they say, all about controlling space and defending areas. Sentinel's prime ability is called Defender System. It deploys an automated laser platform which identifies and destroys incoming grenades and missiles, as well as boosting weapon handling for all nearby crewmates. But it is governed by charges, so it will run out eventually. Rather than being on a timer, we'll have to wait and see what that looks like. Sentinel's tactical ability is a proximity mine called the Snare Mine. It'll detonate into several immobilizing submunitions. Sentinel's passive trait is Castle Doctrine, which grants increased resistance after taking splash damage and faster weapon handling for close-range weapons when surrounded by enemies. Their trait ability is Prey Tracker. It'll activate a short-range motion tracking system that allows them to see nearby moving targets on radar. I think that's going to be very strong, especially paired with Recon, with the recent Recon buffs. The next section is all about updates to the sandbox and new gear. I think some of the highlights that stand out to me is 2 new weapons. First is the KKV-9SD. It's a new pistol frame SMG with an integrated suppressor. And they say that the name will sound familiar to Marathon veterans. There was a helpful commenter on the last video that did point out it was based on a weapon from Marathon, so that's pretty sweet. Its fire rate is extremely fast, coming in at 1,200 rounds per minute. And I think that's going to pair very nicely with Sentinel's increased weapon handling for close-range weapons. The other interesting aspect of the KKV is it also has a built-in folding stock mod, which you can open and close whenever you need it. There is another pistol that they're adding. It's called the D54 Battle Pistol. It comes stock with a red dot sight and fires full auto 3-round bursts. High handling, medium rate of fire. They say it's a hybrid between the BR-33 volley rifle and the BRT SMG. They're going to be introducing a bunch of new chips. The 3 that they highlighted was the Brain Freeze chip. This says that precision downs and kills with a weapon create a small explosion that spread frost to nearby hostiles. This one is the Alarmist chip. After aiming down sights for a brief duration, projectile impacts create a terrifying proximity drone alert. Scrapyard chip. Defeating hostiles with this weapon has a chance to spawn depleted heal items or standard materials. That's cool. Another thing I think will help new players is they're changing how implants look and giving you more information just by looking at it. It was hard to tell implants apart. I definitely ran into that when I was first starting to play. So they say Season 2 implants are now defined by their perk first and have fixed stats, with the name of each implant reflecting its perk. When you check your vault or are quickly looting, it should be easier to tell them apart and choose which ones fit your builds. I think that's going to be huge because, especially when you're raiding, I mean, when you're in the vault, you have lots of time to figure it out. But when you're raiding, I think that is where it's critical. You need to be able to decide exactly what you need and exactly what you don't need, because you don't want to be bringing out a bunch of stuff that you are going to, have just sit there in the vault and not use. So another big feature for this update, aside from, the Night Marsh map, is the Cradle. This is going to be a system that will allow you to boost the base stats of your shells. They say across 6 categories, and that it will lead to unlocking very powerful perks. I wasn't really sure how they were going to fuel these upgrades, like if it was going to be a resource thing, if it was going to be like a special sort of currency that you would find in map, or perhaps something that you would like be able to convert resources into. It's much simpler than that though. You're going to use this thing called the matter converter, which turns weapons, equipment, and other items into experience for your cradle. So the better the item, the more experience you'll receive. You can level up the cradle with that energy, which you then can allocate to any of the 6 stat categories. There are going to be certain breakpoints along that progression path. So I'm thinking like after, let's say, 100 XP that you put in, that's when you're going to like unlock a perk. A very player-friendly aspect of this is that you can reallocate the energy that you've put into your shells at any time without any penalties or limitations, so you can experiment. And the cradle progression is shared across all the runner shells. It's going to reset at the start of a new season, though. They say that you can also expect to see some new additions to faction trees. So an example they give is each faction now has a unique family of implants, head, torso, and leg, which fits the playstyle of that faction. New Caloric offers implants that help with healing and durability, while Mida has ones more proficient in mobility or disruption. For factions, they're saying that they're increasing the rate that you will make progress towards each of them. So it'll be a combination of under-the-hood tweaks and adjustments to the requirements to level up each faction, and increased options and rates at which you earn reputation. A few of the big changes that they have highlighted: the reduced time necessary to reach VIP in most cases. Standard contracts will grant significantly increased faction reputation, so they should help much more with progression. And they added new ways to earn reputation, including adding reputation gain to enhanced valuables and a small amount of reputation for defeating UESC. They want it to feel more like a staircase where you take one step after another, not like a wall you must climb. I think that's pretty apt. I felt like I hit a wall like pretty hard after I hit rank 10, I want to say. I think it was 10 for New Caloric. Oh no, between levels 9 and 10, I found that that was like a very steep increase in how much faction rep I needed to level them up. So I think that's overall really good. There's also a lot of talk about overhauling contracts. I think the things that stand out to me are priority contracts will be more focused on granting loot rewards rather than being hard requirements for reputation. Priority contracts are also no longer gated behind faction reputation levels. I think that's going to make the progression a heck of a lot easier for a lot of people, especially for the ones who don't have a ton of time to play. I'm all over that. They've also refreshed standard and liaison contracts to shave off some of those rough edges. Reminder that if you've completed the liaison contracts and unlocked a faction in Season 1, they'll be unlocked for you in Season 2. So that really only matters for the new players that will be jumping in either from buying the game or on the free week. They do touch a little bit on the PvE content, but it's really just saying that they have appreciated all of the feedback and that they added the the experimental queues and the duos queue, and that they're going to continue with that experimentation with more PvE content, and there will be more details to come. Another big thing is Cryo Archive returns June 11th for its regular rotation. And there's a ton of other quality of life updates, things like expanded vault space for when it's like upgraded to the highest level. There's so much in here, and that's really all the things that I wanted to touch on. You can go read the full notes on Bungie's website. I'll have a link to that somewhere in the description. But yeah, I wanted to know, what do you all think of this? Is this a step in the right direction? Did they cook with this one, or is Marathon DOA, as everybody is saying online? I'm inclined to think that this is just the beginning for all the cool stuff that Bungie has in store for us. So yeah, if you like this video, please leave a comment, leave a like, maybe subscribe if you think this content is worthwhile. I'm going to be making some more Marathon stuff as we get into Season 2. Maybe not so much of the tutorial type videos, but I'm thinking I'll have a little bit more fun with what I do this season. So thanks for watching.